If you remember, it wasn't just Rees-Mogg who went on camera and on record to say how independent Sue Gray was. It was many ministers who said how wonderful Sue Gray was, how we must wait for this report that she was producing. Now, the report has come out. Sue Gray has now decided she is going to work for Keir Starmer, and you would think that was the issue. I don't think it really is. The issue is Boris Johnson's survival and the amount of noise being made about Sue Gray is simply a distraction. And GB News has been talking this morning, not that I spend a lot of time looking at GB News, I hasten to add, but GB News talks about Partygate fatigue, and that is another ruse, I suggest, put forward by Boris's advocates to try to dampen down the Boris disaster which is looming, which is creeping up on Johnson. So the first attempt to silence the Harriet Harman's investigation, given the fact that you put out a short briefing yesterday, a first draft, without having interviewed Boris, it's pretty damning. So it's no surprise that the Sue Gray fuss should have come out in the last couple of days. So that was the first attempt to dampen down the Boris speculation. The second is to say we're all bored with it. Brilliant, really. And now today, Boris has complained that throwing him out of the Commons would set a dangerous precedent. No, it's a unique situation. And even a 10-day suspension could trigger a situation where the people of Uxbridge could demand a by-election. Now, you've got to remember that in Boris's case, his election was not a huge majority. The majority of Uxbridge is very slim. So, in a sense, he is fighting for his political career, but surely his political career is over. Surely he should concede now, go into the House of Lords, put his feet up, and write books. That would be the dignified way out. Is this a Labour stitch-up? That's the other. That's the other question, and that's the question which parallels the focus on Sue Gray. Is it a cynical stitch-up by the Labour Party? Remember that Harriet Harman is the person heading the committee that is investigating Boris, but that committee is made up of a Conservative majority. So it would be foolish to suggest this is a Labour stitch-up. Boris stitched up himself. Boris is the one who went down, I shouldn't use that term given the fact that Matt Hancock scandals are coming out all the time as well, but Boris is the one who famously said, this must be the most unsocially distanced gathering in the UK. One rule for them, another rule for us. That's actually what, that would be a paraphrase of exactly what he said. So he knew full well that there was not parity between what was happening in the rest of the country and what was happening in Westminster. He knew full well that the rules were not being applied in a universal way. So Partygate is just a demonstration of the ambiguity of law, of the fact that it was unfair, and it simply exposes the way the political elite in Westminster exploited that unfairness. And instead of simply having one rule for them and another rule for us, it mocked the rule for us by partying. And that is the problem. The problem is not so much the fact that there were two rules. The problem is that Boris and his cronies mocked the rest of us. Boris was literally partying while the world died. Boris was the Emperor Nero fiddling while Rome burned, if he wants a classical allusion, which I'm sure he would appreciate. It is almost unforgivable. Well, it is unforgivable, and that's why this problem lingers. And the next move will be, why was he in hospital? Did he really have COVID? Those questions will be asked. He was the only member of the political elite across the world to signal that he was in hospital. If President Putin had got COVID, it would have been handled quietly. Why did he go to hospital? Was it possibly that he needed to be out of the firing line of some sort of political explosion? Is it possible that he went into hospital to duck responsibility for something? Because remember, the people ultimately responsible for any problem are the people at the top. If the person at the top is in hospital, he cannot, I suppose, be held responsible. This question will come up. And it sounds harsh. It sounds very harsh, but it will come up. And I'm not sure that Boris can firefight as many of these problems at the same time, and that's what he's going to have to do. And the people he's chosen to help him do the firefighting are nitwits. Nadine Dorries. Nadine Dorries is commanding my firefighting troops. I think one just better give up.